Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. If I could just ask now the board chairpersons, we're about to move into our next panel discussion, which is the board chairs panel discussion. It will feature the board chairperson from Eswatini Railways, that is Ms. Nonhlanhla Fortunate Shongwe. Could she join us on the stage, please, ma'am? A round of applause for her, please. The board chairperson at PRASA, Ms. Nosizwe Nokwe Makamo. And the board chairperson at Zambia Railways Limited, Mr. Emmanuel Hachipuka. Please join us. I think it's anywhere at this stage. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. I think we can sit anywhere now. Can sit anyway. Okay, exciting times. Let me just try and frame this. So in my thinking about this, I thought if greater regional economic integration and growth are the tracks leading us to greater prosperity for the region, Southern Africa, the continent, and her people, may I posit that the entities driving the implementation of rail policies and strategies in our respective countries are the locomotives doing much of the heavy hauling. I'm hoping I'm using the right terminology here. And may I further suggest that in the engine room of these entities, to use an old coal train related metaphor, are battalions of patriotic men and women, dedicated career civil servants, governance professionals, some of them with a firm grounding and experience in business and the private sector, but all fueled by a sense of higher duty and who have raised up their hands to take on what can oftentimes be, a thankless job. The thankless job of constantly shoveling in the fuel of good governance, sustainability, and growth to keep these national rail agencies and by extension our economies and the country's rail systems steaming ahead. Strategic national rail policies are often coordinates. They are merely often coordinates that point us to the desired destination of economic growth and prosperity, and in our instance, regional integration as well. But someone has to drive the train and drive us there. I'm pleased to be joined on the stage now by a small sample of these fine men and women who have said that sit in the engine rooms of the agencies that are responsible for the implementation of the policies, the drivers that are taking us to the destination that we want. I'm joined, as I said, by Ms. Nonhlanhla Fortunate Shongwe, who is the board chairperson from Eswatini Railways. Ms. Nosizwe Nokwe Makamo is chairperson of the PRASA board, as well as Mr. Emmanuel Hachipuka from Zambia Railways. Thank you so much. We will talk about you sharing some of your strategic direction and vision in just a moment, but for the benefit of everyone in the room, I'd like to start with you, Ma'am Shongwe. Just your introduction and the role that you occupy within Eswatini Rail. We had in the last panel a representative from Eswatini, and we got a sense of the importance of Eswatini in terms of the rail corridors within Southern Africa. But what is your specific role in keeping that system and its heart pumping?
Thank you. My name is Nonhlanhla Shongwe, as I've already been introduced. I'm the chairperson of the Eswatini Railways, and with a board of about 7 other members, including the CEO. At the time that we have had the privilege to join this to join Eswatini Railway. It's been tough times. When we joined, our strategy then was revitalization of the industry, of the company. And we've had difficult times, especially financially. So we understand our role as one to bring back Eswatini Railways to what it used to be in terms of its influence in the economy of the country, and also to be able to sustain this, and during exciting times, as it were, when we're looking at huge projects that we'll go into. So that is our role, to ensure that we are able to get us to a stage at least of implementing these exciting projects. That is the mandate that we have from our ministry.
Thank you so much for those introductory remarks. And if I can ask you as well, Ms. Nosizwe Makamo, to do exactly the same. We have the vision at a continental level. We have marching orders from the policy makers. But what do you understand to be your role at this very moment, given your history and background and your experience in areas of governance?
Good morning.
Oh,
I'm
this
told it's
microphone.
on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Right. Thank you. Good morning to all the honorable members from the different SADC countries, distinguished guests, captains of industry, MC, thank you very much. My name is Nosizwe Makamo, and I am the chairperson of the Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa, otherwise known as PRASA. I think we all just call it PRASA. I'm sure I don't have to convince anybody in this room about the importance of rail, be it freight or passenger rail, so I'm not going to go down that road. But our role as the Board of Control of PRASA is to ensure that we do exactly what has been envisioned by our government, our country, to ensure that passenger rail agency becomes really the backbone of affordable and efficient passenger system in this country, as part, obviously, of an intermodal and integrated management system of transport in the country. Obviously, as mentioned earlier by a lot of the colleagues, we're all coming from very difficult backgrounds through the COVID era, when everything came to a complete standstill. So essentially, our role is to ensure the recovery of the rail station, but I mean of the rail service. But can I say that I think as an industry, we all find ourselves in a very, very exciting space, in the sense that we're not just recovering. Recovering is one thing, and yes, it's important and so on. But the rebuilding, the modernization, we heard about the innovations earlier on. The rebuild, the modernization, the innovations that can actually be brought in as you recover and rebuild, I think is where the excitement lies for this industry. And as a board, that is what we are also ensuring that that strategy is implemented in the organization. Notwithstanding the fact that we have another exciting, as a country, I mean as a continent, another exciting change in the rail industry, where we are looking now at how can we do interregional integration, given the fact that we've got the Africa Free Trade Agreement. How can we work together? So our role is to ensure that that strategy from the African Union through to the governments of all our countries, and then down to us as implementing agencies of those policies can actually be achieved. And that is what we see as our role as the board.
So a part of it is about that whole mantra of building back stronger.
Yes.
Such that you're not just restoring what was there, but actually you're restoring it and replacing it with what's even better.
That's
That's what I pick
That's
up.
the exciting part of this whole journey. Thank you.
Mr. Hachipuka, just a brief introduction from your side. How do you understand your role as the board of Zambia Railways Limited? I was checking just recently, you had a visit by members of the parliamentary committee, just checking oversight. So the policy makers are keeping you on your toes. How do you ensure that you live up to their expectations, but importantly, the expectations of Zambians?
Very much.
I think they will sort it out.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. My name is Emmanuel Hachipuka. I am the board chairperson for Zambia Railways Limited. Our board was created or set up in September of last year. So we have been in office roughly about a year now. This is in Zambia. When we were appointed to the board, it was made very clear from the statutes as to what our responsibilities were supposed to be. Zambia Railways has gone through a very difficult time over years. It is, I can safely use the term neglected, because many years ago I was the managing director of Zambia Railways. And during my time, we were running or possessing between ownership and leased something like 89 locomotives. And I find a total of less than 20 as of now. We had in the pool of wagons between South Africa, Zimbabwe, and ourselves, and the Congo and SARA, we had a significant input in there. But our wagons, which are too old, due to the changes, technological changes in the braking system, our wagons cannot cross the borders. That is the condition in which my railway is right at the moment. The signal systems, and indeed the track itself, is almost 150 years old, and it has not been very well maintained. So here we are. We have a task to see if we can revitalize Zambia Railways. Of course, it will need a very heavy injection of cash injection, resources, to try and build up on the equipment, to try and build up and indeed attend to the track. The track, when I was running the railways, or when it was designed, it was meant to be able to support a speed of anything upward of 80 kilometers an hour. The average speed right now on my track is somewhere in 20 kilometers an hour, just to give you what state the railway is. And so the task my board has with our staff is to try and work on those numbers, to try and work on the track, to try and work on locomotives, to try and work on signals, to try and work on the wagons, and indeed probably buy some new wagons, some new locos. It's a tall order. It is a heavy responsibility that has been entrusted on our board. I'm happy that I found a skeleton of staff who are skilled and loyal, and they pride in belonging to Zambia Railways. So that's where we are, and so we have to work on this. But the first thing we have done was to try and look at a strategic plan, put a plan on how we can get out of that mud. And so we have prepared a strategic plan, and I would invite members here, if they can, to visit our stand so that they are able to see a synopsis of our strategic plan. It's a 2-page document.
Yes.
It's not hard to read. It's a summarized form of the plan we have over the next 5 years, beginning in 24 to 28. Yeah. So that is the task we have, to rebuild the railway. And the government has come out and they recognize the importance of this, because we are an adjoining railway. We are the sitting room of this region. If SARA does function well, if South Africa does function well, if Zimbabwe does function well, the Lobito is brought in to stew, and indeed the Congo does operate well. There are plans of adjoining to Botswana and so forth. We are the intermediate railway, and it will be very important that we don't become the bottleneck. Those statistics I've given you in terms of speeds and equipment, they don't render themselves amenable unless, really I feel very happy for now, because I'm holding the government at gunpoint. Because if those railways perform well, there is no choice. We have to be supported. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. And, yes. And your passion comes through, I mean, with your experience, more than 40 years, I understand. And at some point, you were actually managing director of Zambia Railways. So you've come full circle, in a way, to be at the helm of, the governance elements of it. No, I was just saying, I'm just saying that your passion for it and the experience comes through in the way that you speak about it. Ms. Nokwe Makamo, the president and the new government of national unity have framed their priorities and sort of narrowed them down to three, crystallized them to three top priorities. Among them is, of course, the issue of driving inclusive growth and job creation. Reducing poverty is the second one, reducing poverty and tackling the high cost of living. And three, build a capable, ethical, and developmental state. And President Ramaphosa recently gave you your marching orders in the opening of Parliament address. And the quote there says, quote, to drive inclusive growth, we need an efficient freight rail network to carry our minerals, agricultural produce, and manufactured goods to market. All right, that has to do with the freight rail, I realize as I read it. But just looking at those three top priorities, there is nowhere where the work of PRASA does not fit in, be it inclusive growth and job creation, reducing poverty, and particularly tackling the high cost of living, as well as building a capable state, a capable, ethical, and developmental state. Just give us your approach to governance in ensuring that the agency functions to fulfill some of these important imperatives that come through from what the government says.
Okay, thank you very much. So maybe just to talk about, the board provides strategic oversight in terms of the strategy. But one thing that is very clear, you can have as many strategies as you like. But if you don't have an approach in terms of governance, and you don't have an approach that ensures that from a social and ethical responsibility, you as the board are not inculcating a very ethical culture and a governance-centric culture in the organization, you will not be able to attain those strategic goals that we speak about. So the board has been seized, and maybe I didn't mention as well, as my colleague mentioned, from the 1st of December, 12th of December last year is when this board was appointed. And they've been seized with ensuring that governance processes are embedded within the organization. As you know, our industry is a capital-intensive industry. The second thing is that from a passenger rail agency, we are funded by the government, by the state, as it were. So if you do not have your governance processes in place, you are liable to not being able to execute on your capital projects. Mm-hmm. So we've put functioning government systems in place. And this preamble, I'm just making it so that you can understand that because of the governance systems that have been put in place, for the first time, the Passenger Rail Agency has been able to execute on its capital expenditure, spending pretty close in the last couple of years, close to about 49 billion on capital projects. Now, those capital projects are, as I said before, on the recovery and the rebuild. And what do? They have an impact on, one, the rail industry in this country has been revitalized. What does that mean? That means jobs. That means skill training. That means an impact on one of those priorities that you are mentioning. Secondly, the rail industry from a passenger rail perspective, because of the fact that your transportation is affordable and it's efficient, it actually puts money back into the pockets of current workers and potential workers. Now, we've got a calculation on that. And the exponential impact of that capital spend and the money that you put back into the pocket of the commuters is actually filtering through into the economy. So now you're starting to have a positive impact on economic growth as well, because of the fact that you're able to transport workers efficiently to their places of work at an affordable rate. So then you're now starting to impact again on the what do you call it, job preservation. I don't know if you're aware that at some point during the decimation of the rail system in the country, the passenger rail system, a lot of people weren't able to go to work because they simply couldn't afford it. And then you had an impact on the unemployment rate because of the fact that people are unable to actually get to their places of work. Now that, the passenger rail agency efficiency has got an impact on that. So now you're talking about how are you impacting social development in the country as well.
Yeah.
So there are numbers that have been calculated in terms of what is the fiscal impact of an efficient operating passenger rail system in the country. And it's been actually calculated to be probably at about 11 billion per annum as a fiscal positive impact if you're running an efficient passenger rail service system.
Sure.
So as a board, we don't just look at governance as an internal process to make sure that all the processes and controls are in place, but we look at it as an enabling factor to be able to allow the organization to function efficiently, thus having a positive impact on society, and thus having an impact positively on delivering on those priorities. And maybe just as a small, what do they call it, a small bleat, as they say, the president did mention the Passenger Rail Agency South Africa to say, we are proud of the fact that they have managed to revitalize the, starting to revitalize this, the rail system such that 31 out of 40 corridors have now been recovered in a limited capacity by the Passenger Rail Agency South Africa.
Yeah,
so
and-
all of this good work is actually having an impact in the economy.
Yeah, and that's no mean feat, right? It's
no
mean
mean
feat,
feat.
given
That's
where
no
we
mean
were
feat.
at some point.
Exactly, that is
And
no mean feat whatsoever.
Nowadays, your blue trains, you call them EMUs, but people
Isitimela
call them
sabantu.
Isitimela sabantu,
We
have
don't want
become,
it confused with the blue train that goes to Cape
Eh,
Town.
have become a
Isitimela
feature of our
sabantu, the people's
landscape.
train, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you.
Ms. Shongwe, just talk to me about, the government and the policymakers have realized the strategic advantage that can be realized from what ordinarily would have been Eswatini's, a sort of weakness, being landlocked, but there was a realization that actually here there are many advantages to it that can be capitalized on. What are the implications of that for you in how you drive issues of governance, for example, around this massive build project that is underway right now? What are some of the, ways in which you are driving governance, ensuring that the objectives are met and there's delivery, and all of this within the confines of good governance?
Thank you. Yes, as I said, we have a board of about maybe 7 people apart from myself. It is a young board, relatively speaking, full of energy. They work very hard. And we don't have the privilege of being financed by government. Government has come in to assist with the rail project, the rail link project, with the resettlement of the people there. Otherwise, railway, ESR I will call it, as what in railways, ESR has to be able to manage on its own.
Sure.
It is taken as a company that is expected to deliver a service, but at a profit. So we are actually expected at the end of the year to declare a dividend. So now you can just imagine.
You're expecting to declare a dividend.
To our shareholder.
Okay,
Being the
share
government
with
of
us.
Swaziland.
Share with us that experience. How do you
Yeah,
manage that?
so-
Because
so-
you will have seen, I set up as you started saying
Yeah.
that, because I'm thinking, parastatal, there's always that debate of financing it
Yes.
and what it needs to do.
Yes.
You are saying the government, there's no funding from there, but instead you declare a dividend. How do you do that?
Yes, it's a tall order. It's a tall order for ESR, and I'm proud to say that, with the work of our management, they've actually been so committed, because you cannot just sit with us and expect that money is going to come. So there has to be an aggressive drive to get customers, to get people who are going to use our rail, but also we depend so much on integration. It is very important to us because most of our income comes from transit business. So we're looking at our neighbors on the north. You know, we want to get whatever we can to make money so that at the end of the day, we're able to function, we're able to finance our costs. So you can imagine how difficult that is. But at the same time, we must do whatever we do, the aggressiveness in getting business within the confines of governance. So governance to us is important. Our current strategy is looking at improving performance, and now we're looking at being able to upskill our employees and also, you know, inject them with the excitement of working for ESR. And it's very difficult to do that if you've got financial constraints. And we are constrained financially, but we do the best that we can as a board to ensure that there's fair labor practice, there is remuneration, you know, as competitive as it can be, because it's not easy. But also we have the challenge of an aging infrastructure. We've been around, I think the PS representing the minister did mention that our first rail, I think it was in 1964. So now you can imagine our rail has deteriorated, and then we also have the challenge of rainstorms and inclement weather, you know, damaging our infrastructure. So we find that a lot of the money that we're able to make has to go into rehabilitation of the infrastructure. So it is difficult, but we, as we all will realize, we are capital intensive as railways. So that means that you've got to get people to go and, you know, rehabilitate the infrastructure, do this and that. And within all of that, there's the risk that because of the amount of work that we have, elements of corruption are going to creep in because there are people now who are going to have to implement this work. So as a board, those are the things also that we are looking at to ensure that we do business ethically, and then that we are able to also ensure that the environment is safe, and to also ensure that even the people who live around where our railways are, the communities, they must be happy. So we've established over time, there's schools there's clinics that are basically run by the railways, just to ensure that there's that sense of loyalty to ESR.
No, I did see that even those issues that you identify as risks, you've been moving to address them. Recently, you called for a forensic audit, for example, around the issue of relocation of affected people. Mr. Hachipuka, just on the issues of rolling stock, as well as issues of maintenance, how much of a challenge are they for you in Zambia, and how are you grappling with those challenges?
It is.
It's always green.
The operations of Zambia Railways as of now are extremely at their lowest ebb. The rolling stock is a very serious handicap. A few years back, when I was managing director, perhaps that was the only time for many years we were able to secure something like 15 G300s locals. But for a long time, we've been hiring to supplement that from the neighboring railways, mainly from this end. That is a very serious constraint. But you see, if you have too many potholes, which in railway terms you call them temporal speed restrictions, and your speeds, the line, the track can only support speeds of 10, 15, 20, or 30, there must be a lot of potholes on that line. And if you do not attend to that, whatever new equipment you secure, the equipment is insecure. Because there will be accidents, your accident rates will be high, and no equipment can, even on a road, if you do not maintain your road, your vehicles, the maintenance costs will go up and accidents will go up. So we suffer from a situation where the truck is in extremely very bad state, and that is what we have prioritized now to deal with. Because whatever equipment we can secure will not be safe and it will be damaged. So rolling stock is a serious matter. In rolling stock, we have the issue of the locomotives. The wagons, as I speak now, our wagons are not acceptable on the neighboring railways because of the difference in the braking system. Our neighbors have moved to the next level. Ours are still in the old level, and in the process, they are not acceptable. Therefore, we've ended up having traffic from the south, from SARA, heading into the Congo or into Zambia, using foreign locals, outside foreign wagons. And you know the interchange arrangements between railways are so expensive in the sense that you're only allowed so many days to keep someone's rolling stock on your line, beyond which you have got to pay. So we end up in the deficit most of the time. So it's a very serious condition for us, and in our strategic business plan, we have emphasized the need that we have to do everything we can to secure funding for the locomotives, to secure funding for the wagons, to secure funding for the truck, in that order. It's a must, because when I was running the railways many years ago, we were carrying something in the region of 6 million tons per annum, and we are down to 800 now. And that's a serious drop. Even if, and we are not getting support in terms of running costs from government or from anybody else. So it's a very tight ship to run from that perspective. So we will use ingenuity to try and find money, come rain, come sunshine. And we are hoping that the government will support us. We are hoping that we'll go into, in the projects we have identified in there, we'll go for PPs so that we can go into partnership with bankers, with the technical organizations to try and get the railway on its wheels as best as we can. And we are very, very, very optimistic about going that route. The problem with the railways is that they are heavy engineering, heavy cash flow they require heavy cash flow, and even if you have the money, we are hoping that we will go into partnership with contractors. It's one thing to have the money; it's another to have the skill and the manpower to try and spend that money so that your equipment availability can improve. So that's where we are.
Yeah. Ms. Makamo, just picking up from what was said just now about the challenges, talk to me about sustainability. How confident are you that as South Africans see you announcing day in, day out that you are reopening a new line? As you were saying earlier on, 31 of the 40 lines nationally and still counting. But also I saw that you were now talking, as early as April this year, you were talking over 70 million passenger trips. That was in April. I'm pretty sure that has gone up. But sustainability thereof, from a leadership perspective, from a financial perspective, and a governance perspective, how sure can South Africans be that you've turned the corner, that financially you will be sustainable? And if I may just add, I mean, I look at your pricing, for example, and I have question marks in my head to say, wow, that is seriously affordable, understanding who the market is, but then link that to the question of sustainability, please.
Thank you. Maybe just to, before I answer your question, just to state that, as you know, I think we heard earlier that we have Gibela, where we are manufacturing
Yes.
rolling stock. So our intention is to be able to actually be the rolling stock partner of many of our sister countries on the continent. We're offering that as an opportunity that we can be a rolling stock
Sure.
supply partner for that. So I think as we go on with our discussions,
Yeah.
we will find ways and means how we can present the product and services that
Yes.
we would like to use, using our, what you call it, the African Union and the AFTA, the whole AFTA environment,
Yes.
to practically, not just talk about
Yes.
this AFTA, let us practically see how we can collaborate.
Yeah.
So we want to walk down that road. Now coming back to what you asked, it is a fact that our industry is capital intensive. It is also a fact that we are now standing in the point where we are going through a transition industry-wise. So gone are the days, and I heard my colleagues explaining that there's a finance constraint. We also have a financing constraint in terms of PRASA and all the things that we have to do. Yes, we do get assistance from the government, but in terms of all the projects that need to be run out, we do have a finance constraint just like anybody. So what needs to happen? In terms of sustainability, we now need to start looking at different options and innovative options of how can we roll out some of our programs by using different innovative financing methodologies. So we're in the process right now of actually thinking about and looking at those different options that can be looked at. So I might mention to you that from a property management perspective, PRASA has already moved with some of an innovation of utilizing the vast property network that, that PRASA has to partner with the private sector. In Cape Town, our Cape Town station is now a 7,000-meter retail area with student accommodation, which provides student accommodation as a node for all the students and universities in Cape Town. So we need to think out of the box of just our rail line. So we've got the rail, we've got the network, we've got properties, and we have many assets that we can actually start to utilize to bring in different forms of income. You spoke about the fact that how is it sustainable when you've got tickets that are that cost so little? If we're going to, if we are convinced that rail has to be the backbone of passenger travel, then we need to put our money where our mouth is, which is the fact that you cannot be charging your passengers unaffordable amounts. Otherwise, they're not coming on your, they're not coming into your trains. They're going to be doing something else. Now you've already mentioned that you've got a capital-intensive industry, you've got a capital-intensive company. How then do you bring in the packs? How then do you bring in the millions of feet and into the trains? Is by making sure that you are at an affordable point. So if I tell you that your ticket is going to cost you less than a liter of petrol, you're
absolutely.
incentivized.
I'm leaving
And
my
therefore
car.
you're bringing the packs, you're bringing the feet onto not only the trains, but all your retail sites and so on and so forth. So you're finding innovative spokes where you can actually try to increase revenue generation. I think another thing that maybe we must, MC, we must maybe take this discussion at a certain point. Actually, if we look at it carefully and we benchmark, passenger rail is not supposed to be a profit-generating. It's not supposed to be a profit-generating industry. Freight is a different thing. But from a passenger rail service, this is a socio-economic service that you're providing for the people. So if you can break even from your revenue of your ticket sales, or allow that money to assist you in certain operational expenses, you're doing well. But profit, please, let us not put that type of
Unless,
expectation.
of course, you are Eswatini
Yes,
Railways.
yes,
and-
yes. I'm very
and-
concerned for. I'm
and-
concerned for my sister here. So we're going to have that discussion sometime
so-
at lunchtime.
Yeah.
So I think the other thing that becomes important, the harmonization of standards between the countries in SADC. It's really important. I mean, how on earth are we going to be able to assist one another as we leave this conference? We're saying, okay, next year we want to say PRASA is working with Zambia, is working with so-and-so. How are we going to be able to assist one another if we haven't harmonized our standards?
Yeah.
So we need to start at a policy level to start harmonizing and standardizing some of the issues so that the connectivity.
Sorry, ma'am, if I can
Yeah.
chip in there. So you're talking harmonizing at a policy level as opposed to a technical level, is it? Because my understanding is that as far as the gauge standards, etc., you are pretty much on the same range in the Southern African region. So you're talking at another level.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. And also prioritizing our interdependability and prioritizing working with one another. So for instance, we should be working together in terms of this issue of the rolling stock. Because here is one of the countries, we have the capacity to produce the rolling stock. We should be working together. So somewhere at a policy level, we've got to agree to say, you know, like in private sector company, in the companies, you say, I give you the first right of refusal. So Mr. Simelani, I give you the first right of refusal to be the one that supplies me with the rolling stock before I go and talk to Mang Mang in Germany. This is what I'm talking about. So
Yeah.
we need to get to a point where we can actually harmonize those policy approaches
Sure.
about where do we procure, who do we talk to, how do we integrate the services among each other.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that if you heard all the conversations from the ministers earlier and the ministers' representatives, there is so much energy in the build-up of all the different countries, what they're doing. Lobito, here, there's Botswana corridor to Maputo. The energy is bustling. But the question then becomes, where are we spending to make this energy? Where are we spending to make all this rail infrastructure?
Yeah.
Is there a way that we can harness that? And one of the colleagues said it this morning. Can we harness that so that we can then improve the interconnectivity and the spend in the countries,
Yeah.
in SADC?
Yeah. If I can just bring you in just on that point, the harmonization, putting heads together for solutions, the partnerships and collaboration. Your thoughts on what Ms. Nokwe Makamo just said now?
Yes, I agree fully. I think for us in Swaziland, we don't have much of a choice. Like I said, we depend so much on what we can transport for our neighbors. So for us, we're always ready to sit down and talk. And as I speak, we already, I think as my colleague just mentioned earlier, with Mozambique, CFM, we actually now have that seamless movement of trains. And we want to drive those. We're even talking to Transnet to be able to achieve the same thing. And that may not be policy as such, but it is policy to some extent. And I think we can even develop more on that because it's important that we work together. Just a few days ago, I happened to hear that there is, I think, a development that is happening linking our neighbors. And our first question was, why were we left out? Maybe it's our fault. But anyway, for us, it's so important. We definitely are not sustainable without our neighbors. So it's important for us that those policies are developed. And we are actually getting a lot of assistance in terms of rolling stock from our neighbors, from Transnet, from CFM to some extent. So for us, firming up those policies would be actually a big advantage, just to make us sustainable. Because as I say, with the small economy that we have customers within Swaziland, but at the moment, it's not enough to sustain us. So for us to be sustainable, we need to work with our neighbors. So for us, that is really important.
I would have loved to continue with this conversation. Knowing me, we're probably going to go for another hour. But I am told that I do need to release you because we are going to have the official opening of the exhibition before we get to lunch. I've got to thank you for your time and for having graced me with your insights and sharing your insights with everyone in the room. A round of applause for our panelists, please. That was Ms. Nonhlanhla Fortunate Shongwe, who is board chairperson at Eswatini Railways, Ms. Nosizwe Nogwe Makamo, who is chairperson of the Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa board, as well as Mr. Emmanuel Hachipuka, who is chairperson of Zambia Railways Limited.